Did you know that a jury can sit through an entire trial, know for a fact that the defendant committed the crime they're on trial for, throw all the law out the window, and still find the defendant not guilty? It's called jury nullification, and today I'm going to be teaching you all about that along with several other criminal legal terms you need to know. Hey guys, it's Mikayla and welcome back to another video in my Legal Terms You Need to Know series. If you missed my first 3 videos in this series where we covered some of the basics, more general legal terms, and civil specific legal terms, be sure to check out my playlist so you can be fully informed. On the menu today is criminal law, so let's get into it. Warrant. Starting with the word you've most likely heard before, a warrant is an order from a court allowing the police to perform a certain action. One common type of warrant is called a search warrant, which allow the police to enter and search a premises. An important thing to note about a search warrant is the search is limited to specifically what is contained within the warrant. If the cops have a warrant to search your living room, they don't just get to decide to search your bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen unless that is included within the warrant. Like with anything, there are a few exceptions, but in general, make sure you are fully aware of what is contained within the warrant that is being served on you or your property. And just to throw in another example, another common type of warrant is called an arrest warrant, which, as I'm sure you guessed, allows the police to arrest someone and take them into custody. Detain. Sometimes, however, police stop and hold people without making a formal arrest. This is called being detained, and you know you're being detained when you are not free to leave. If you're ever talking to a cop and you're unsure as to whether you're being detained, ask them. And if you are being detained, don't say nothing, don't sign nothing, don't consent to a search, and ask for a lawyer. It is well within your rights to do all of the things I just mentioned, and knowing all of your rights can be an entirely separate video. Arrested versus charged. Arrested and charged when it comes to a crime are often used interchangeably, but they are not the same thing. Being arrested means you were taken into custody by police. That's it. And you can be arrested and let go without ever being charged with the crime. Once you're in police custody, the prosecutor's office will then decide whether to charge you with a crime. And just because you've been charged with a crime does not mean you are guilty of having committed that crime. It simply believes the state has enough evidence to proceed with the process of trying to prove you committed whatever crime you're being charged with. Arraignment. After you get arrested, you then attend arraignment, which is also known as your initial appearance. This is the first hearing you will attend after being taken into custody, and during arraignment, several things occur. First, you're informed of the charges and the reason for the charges against you. You then enter a plea of guilty, not guilty, or nolo contendery, which we'll touch on in a second. And finally, if you're getting something called bail, which we'll also touch on later, your bail is set at arraignment as well. Nolo contender, nolo contendere, nolo contendere, no contest. You've surely heard of pleading guilty and pleading not guilty, but have you ever heard of pleading nolo contender? Nolo contender is the third way a defendant can plead, and it means you plead no contest. You're not saying you did it, but you're also not saying you didn't do it. But you're treated the same way as if you had pled guilty. So in my opinion, a plea of no contest is really just for you. It doesn't get you out of anything. Bail versus bond. If you plead not guilty, depending on a number of factors, such as the crimes you're being charged with, your offense history, and your ties to the community, the judge can do something called setting bail. Bail is an amount of cash or bond that the defendant pays to the court that will allow the defendant to be released from jail until the trial. A bond is what a bail bondsman or a bonding company pays to the court for you. And they do this with the guarantee that if they pay your bail with a bond, that you promise to do whatever the court says as far as showing up to a future hearing or trial. And if you don't show up, you will get in a lot of trouble. Trust me on that one. Felony versus misdemeanor. This one's pretty simple, but it's important to know the difference. A felony is a serious crime punishable by more than 1 year in prison or punishable by death. A misdemeanor is a less serious crime punishable by up to 1 year in prison or a fine. And there are several other differences and effects that come with being convicted of a felony versus a misdemeanor, but that is the difference between them at their core. Accessory versus accomplice. Big difference between being an accessory to a crime and an accomplice to a crime. An accomplice is someone who helps the person commit the crime, and they are just as responsible for the crime being committed as the main person that committed the crime. An accessory is a person who aids, assists, or encourages the person who's committing the crime, and this can be done before or after the crime is committed. For example, I work at a bank and my friend tells me that they want to rob the bank that I work at. I decide to give my friend the code or the key that will allow them to access the bank after hours and take whatever money from it. In that scenario, I am an accessory before the fact. Now, let's say I'm physically at the bank when my friend arrives after hours. I let them in and I help them start piling money into a bag. Now I'm an accomplice to the crime, even if it wasn't my idea to commit the crime in the first place. Now, let's say I do none of the above and my role is to just wait outside the bank in the getaway car to drive my friend away after they steal all the money. In that scenario, I would be an accessory after the fact. You definitely don't want to be any of the three, but being an accomplice to a crime is punished much more severely than being an accessory to a crime. Double jeopardy. Double jeopardy just means you cannot be punished for the same crime more than once. If you're found guilty and convicted of a crime, or you're found not guilty and acquitted of a crime, the state cannot just decide that they want to have a second go at you for the same crime. Double jeopardy means you cannot be punished twice for the same offense. Jury nullification. I had an entire course in law school on juries, and when I learned about jury nullification, it blew my mind. Jury nullification happens when a jury enters a verdict that is inconsistent with the law. More specifically, a jury can intentionally ignore the law and find the complete opposite way than they legally should based on the evidence. The most typical case is when a defendant is being tried for a crime. All of the evidence points to the defendant having committed that crime, and the jury decides for whatever reason, maybe they know the defendant committed the crime, but they don't think the defendant deserves to be punished. Maybe the crime that the defendant's on trial for, the jury thinks shouldn't even be a crime at all. Whatever the reason, they decide to find the defendant not guilty, nullifying them. People don't actually realize the power that juries have. I mean, they literally have the ability to say, yeah, the defendant broke the law, but honestly, that law's dumb, so I find the defendant not guilty. It's honestly amazing. I hope you all learned something that you didn't know before watching this video, and I certainly plan to make more videos like this in the future. So be sure to subscribe and leave me a comment telling me your thoughts or some more legalese you'd like me to debunk. And before you go, be sure to click on the video on the screen right now where I answer some commonly Googled questions about lawyers so you can find out even more about what we do. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye and go thrive.